I'm going to give you a structure by which you will be able to think through metrics for any product that you are building. That product may have a UI, it may not have a UI. It could be API based, it may not be API based. It could be a B2B, it could be a B2C, right? And I remember this question came out last time as well, that how do I measure for a B2B versus B2B? B2C, the metrics would be different. Metrics may be different, structure may not be different. So I'm going to be talking about that structure itself. So imagine for a moment, you are one of those PMs and you've been asked to figure out how do I measure the success of my product, right? If that is the question, then what could be your answer? Okay. So if you're ready with me to go through this journey, I will be happy to walk you through this, right? So very first thing I want to talk about is product related metrics. Okay. How do you measure the success of your product? Now, as I said, I'm not going to use any abbreviations. I'm going to present to you a structure. So let's go through that structure. The first thing that you should be aware of, and these are the bullet points that maybe you should take down as well as you are going through this class. The very first thing that you should worry about is the breadth of your product. The word you need to remember is breadth. Don't remember MAU and DAO and CLAC and CAC. No, remember breadth. What does breadth mean? Breadth means, again, let's take an example and we'll be able to articulate a little better, right? Imagine I am the product owner of Amazon, Amazon.com or Amazon.in, right? What is the breadth of usage for my product? What do I mean by breadth? Breadth really means if I am looking at Amazon.com, how many users are landing on my overarching homepage? How many users are landing on my pay on Amazon through affiliate links? How many users are landing on Amazon on maybe directly into the product details page? But what is the overarching breadth of my usage? Okay. From Amazon, I took users as an example. If you remember last time we talked about what if I have built a weather API, right? In weather API, users is not my breadth. Maybe my breadth will be what is the total number of customers that I have adopted that are adopting my APIs, or what could be the total number of APIs itself that are being used by my customers. Breadth in a simple sentence means what is the breadth in which the customers are consuming your product. Okay. Think of it as the top of the funnel. A funnel is always like this, right? Top of the funnel is very broad. So think what is the top of the funnel for your product. If I look at Edge, if I look at a browser, if I look at a search engine, if I look at API calls, if I look at B2B, who is helping you form the top of your funnel is what you need to answer. Point number one that you should be aware of is the breadth of usage. Now, if there is breadth of usage, now I've taken some examples. MAU, monthly active users, daily active users, all these category of metrics is basically nothing but the breadth of your product usage. Okay. Now, when I say active, right, you need to think what active even means. If I'm using Amazon search or Amazon.com, what does active mean? Does active mean I am active on Amazon.com if I'm at least making one order a month? If I'm using Google.com, does active mean I'm at least doing 5 searches a month? If I'm an Edge user, does it active? Maybe it's nothing to do with usage. It's just that I have 2 or 1 browser open for at least 10 days in a month. What does active mean? You have to define. Another very important thing, we always start thinking metrics, we start thinking users. That's not always right. When we're thinking breadth, users may not be defining how my product is being used at any point in time. I took that weather API as an example. Maybe the activeness of your product is what is the usage of your APIs, right? And therefore, let's say you are owning search as a product, then you don't care about whether how many active users are there on search. Maybe you care about how many active searches are happening per session. Your definition of active will change depending upon what your KPIs are and what your objectives are. Now you see how KPIs and objectives are important. So that's where breadth goes. Now, if there is breadth, there has to be depth. So that's bullet point number 2. So now what does depth mean? Depth means, see, it's great that you got 100 million users on Amazon.com. That's brilliant number, right? But do you care about that 100 million? Do you think that from a product metric standpoint, or let's say Jeff Bezos is there and he's trying to think, where do I take Amazon.com? How much would he care more about the top of the funnel, or how many people are actually making the purchase? I think so the answer is going to be latter, because the total number of purchases is what's going to let me make my cash flows, right? So depth basically means the entire funnel of your usage. Breadth is the top of the funnel, how many people landed on the Amazon.com homepage. Depth means you landed on Amazon.com homepage, you search, let's say 100 people landed on the homepage. 90 of them searched something. Out of the 90 who searched, 80 landed on an object details page, an item details page. Maybe you're searching for jeans, you went to the details page of the search. Out of the, whatever, we were 100, then 90, then 80. Out of the 80 who went to the item details page, maybe 40 added it to a cart and maybe 20 actually made the purchase. Which number is more important, the 100 that landed or 20 to make the purchase? I would argue the entire funnel is important. This is the depth of usage. You started at the top and then you keep coming down to figure out how your funnel, the entire funnel of the product is being used right now. Similarly, if let's say I'm thinking Google.com, what would be my funnel looking like for Google.com? How many people landed on Google.com, or how many people made API calls on Google.com? How many of those landing users actually searched something? After they searched, how many of them clicked on a particular result? Does the funnel get over when I have searched something? No. How many of repeat searches happened? And therefore, so on and so forth, right? My entire funnel needs to be identified, which could basically mean what is the depth of usage of my product. On Google.com, did you do image search? Did you do news search? Did you do map search? Till what depth are you taking that product into? That is something that we colloquially call as funnel metrics, that you can track by number of clicks, number of purchases, and this is where some of your financial metrics will also come in. That, the 100 who landed, 20 who clicked, how much money did you make for me? Okay. Again, no abbreviations, 2 terms you have understood. There is breadth, the top of the funnel, there is depth, the bottom of the funnel. Now you will see as I proceed that each of these metric only gives you part of the story, but not the complete story. Okay. Breadth gave you the top, depth gave you the depth, but just depth is not sufficient. I need to know more. I need to know the frequency of the depth, right? And I'll tell you what frequency of the depth is. If you see, the diagram keeps changing on the left hand side. So there was breadth, there is depth, and now I'm interested in the frequency of the depth. What does frequency of the depth mean? How often are you using my product? Again, let's take Amazon.com as an example. You came to my product on day 1. On the same day, you use my product 6 times. That is a very interesting metric. Now imagine if I stop at just the top of the funnel being total number of users who are using Amazon. For me, whether you come to Amazon once or you come to Amazon 100 times, for me, it was just one number, right? But now frequency is interesting, because with frequency, I can tell you whether not only are you active, but I also tell you whether you are a dedicated user of Amazon or are you a tire kicker. Dedicated means, bhaiya, if anything you have to purchase, you are coming to Amazon 5 times a day. You are a dedicated user. Tire kicker means, oh, that guy came once in 3 months and then he will never come. Where should I be focusing on? On my tire kicker or the dedicated user? Of course, the dedicated user, right? So therefore, this frequency of usage helps us ascertain how often are you coming on my product. And this can be derived using session metrics, which basically means The fact that I used Amazon.com and I purchased 10 products in my single session and then I said Tata bye bye, which is great because I tracked you, that one user. I know that you are one user. I understand the entire funnel. But the next time when you log in, you have created a new frequency. You have created a new session. Therefore, I have to treat that funnel separately. Does that make sense? So again, going back to the basics, we talked about what is the breadth of the funnel. We talked about what's the depth of the funnel. And now I have sliced that depth by sessions in which you are consuming my products. Again, I will take a pause here. Do you think we are done? Like, is that it? Looks like done, right? I have the breadth, I have the depth, and I have split that frequency of the depth into individual sessions. Do you think anything is missing right now? I'll take a pause here. That will also help me understand whether you're understanding what I'm saying. Any questions or any thoughts of what is still missing? Or is there something still missing? Anand, please go ahead.
Sir, probably the basket value or the AOV of the purchase.
No abbreviations. We will not use any abbreviations in this meeting because abbreviations confuse. So let's not use AOV.
The average order value.
So you're absolutely right. Basket size, yes. Basket size is basically actually if you see, right, basket size is the conclusion of my funnel. But you're right. We will come to the basket size also. Anything else? I'm again going to the structure, right? I'm saying I have seen the breadth. I've seen the depth. I sliced that depth into individual sessions. Does that give me a complete picture of my user or the usage of my product?
Actually, I have read somewhere that we usually measure the frequency, recency, and monetization, or in some sense, the impact that a feature makes in future.
So, see, frequency, recency, and what is the third thing you said?
Impact or monetization, like whichever product you are using.
Yeah, I think so. Anand, and you are saying the same thing. You're basically pushing me towards money. I'm still not there yet. I'm saying from a user and usage perspective, are we done? आएंगे, पैसे पे भी आएंगे. I know money is important. Okay, again, so let's understand. I have understood the depth, the breadth. I've understood the depth and I've sliced the depth into frequencies. Think of it. You used the product once and then you came to the product second time and you came to the product third time, the fourth time, and the fifth time, and the sixth time. For me, you are still a number. As a user, you are a number, or the number of times you initiated a session on my product, you are still a number. I still do not know how good or bad your session was. And therefore comes the cycle time. But yeah, how much time did you spend on my product? If in first session, let's take Amazon.com again, right? You spent in 5 minutes, you were able to make a purchase. The second time you take 35 minutes to make a purchase, and the third time you take 40 minutes to take a purchase. I need to understand how much time are you spending on my product overall? How much time are you spending on my product from a session perspective? Here I have brought in a new variable called time. So let's go back. Breadth is just a number, right? It's a variable X. Depth is also a number. It's just that that number has been split into the features that you want to talk about. Okay. Frequency, you have split that number by sessions. You are basically saying, though you have gone that deep, but every time you go that deep, for me, you are a new, your usage is new. Does that make sense? So if Soham uses my product 10 times, I want to track him 10 times. And now I'm bringing a time aspect to it. The variable T has now been added. And I'm saying, I want to figure out how much time have you spent in every single session, because the time aspect is important for me, because without time, I can't tell you whether your usage should be adequate or not adequate. What that means is, if on Amazon.com, you take 35 minutes to make a purchase, there's some serious problem. If on Amazon.com, I was able to help you make a purchase in a few seconds, that's great. Have you ever observed that if you add a single item to your cart in Amazon, you will get an option to say buy now. There's always a buy now, there's always an add to cart. Buy now is doing nothing but reducing your cycle time. In Google, have you seen I am feeling lucky? I am feeling lucky is nothing but reducing your cycle time. You can do a Google search, but you can do I am feeling lucky, which is basically means I want to see the first result that Google has to share with me. A lot of companies spend a lot of time helping you reduce your cycle time. I'm not sure whether you heard this term. There's a term called 5 seconds to use and 5 minutes to wow, which basically means within 5 seconds, I want to make sure that you are using my product within 5 seconds. If I have to read a documentation to land on your product, you've lost me as a customer. I should be able to get you on my product in a usable fashion in 5 seconds, and I should have a wow minute in 5 minutes, a wow thing in 5 minutes. What is this all about? What is 5 seconds to land and 5 minutes to wow? It's nothing but cycle time. You measure cycle time and you try to get people wowed about your product or get them going in 5 seconds. Okay. So even when you start thinking products, when you start imagining startups, think how much time is your customer taking to get started and be productive. Can that happen in 5 seconds in a single click? Great. Right? So that's where cycle time comes. Again, we talked about breadth, we talked about depth, we sliced the depth into frequency, which is nothing but session, and now I'm measuring the time associated with the session. Still, it is not complete. It's great. I understand that you spent 35 minutes and somebody else spent 5 seconds to purchase, but I don't know the quality of those 35 minutes spent. Maybe you are extremely satisfied with spending 35 minutes. And maybe I am the one who's a completely grudge customer and I feel, why did I spend 5 seconds? How do I measure that? I measure that by quality. There will be some sessions which have run for X amount of time, and I want to understand what was the quality of the time that you spent on my product. And when I say quality, now you are getting into quantitative behavior or qualitative behavior. You are trying to understand, maza aaya nahi aaya? Aye product pe, did you feel good or did you not feel good? And you would have heard there are, again, as you see, I'm not talking about abbreviations, Net Promoter Score, CSAT, DSAT, so many metrics are there that can help you land this, that can help you understand qualitatively that when I spend those 30 minutes on your product, did I go happy or sad? For those who've gone to Decathlon, you would have been seeing a smiley face, a smiley and a frown. That is nothing but validating the quality of your purchase or the time that you spent in Decathlon. How did you feel happy? Did you not feel happy? Not going into the details. You have the entire internet to figure out NPS कैसे चलता है, CSAT कैसे चल सकता है, DSAT कैसे चल सकता है. There are formulas, etc., that can help you land there. I am taking a pause here. These 5 for your product, if you are able to apply, you should be able to do metric evaluation for any product. And this is my pause because there were questions around B2B, B2C, API based product, UX based product, command line based products, whatever the case may be. Are you able to think through that your product can fit these 5 layers? The breadth, the depth, the frequency, the session of the frequency, and the quality of the frequency. I'll take a pause here for any questions. And I'll get to more, I'll get to revenue, etc. Don't worry. Any questions? Okay. I did a 10-second rule this time. There were no questions. And Anand, your hand is raised. I don't know whether it's raised from the previous question that I asked or it's just raised. Okay, went down. Any questions, any thoughts? If somebody is building a product, this may be a right time to ask. Yeah, Anand.
So one more thing, like suppose we understood that, okay, I mean, the metrics are not going as per what we want, like the metrics are really low. So what would be the remedies to improve these metrics? I mean, probably if you can highlight that also in the end, or like just give us a hint.
I will do that. That's part of this session. Thanks for bringing it up. It's the last part of this session. By the way, Anand, metrics not going good to root cause of what went wrong is a very tricky game. And I will show you my own journey of looking at some of these and getting super confused. The first thing that will happen to you when you start seeing metrics going haywire is that you will get confused. And then I'll tell you at least how do you track that confusion and basically get into root cause. Okay, I'll move on. So if you see, this is, I can vouch for it. When you create a product metric, 90% of your metrics will fall into these 5 categories. So when you start thinking metrics, think, have I measured the breadth of my product? Have I measured the depth of my product? Have I measured the frequency of usage of customers? Have I measured the time associated with the frequency? Did I measure the quality of the usage? The moment you ask yourself these 5 questions, your product metrics will be complete. At times we get so married with the concept of MAU, DAO, CSAT, DSAT. We write them not understanding how is it going to help me. This structure allows you to think through how it's going to help you. Okay, I went very slow on these 5. I'm going to speed up now. Okay, because my structure gets over. Revenue related. See, revenue related, right? I don't think so. I found a good structure. There are so many of these revenue related metrics. What I found, like when I was reflecting while I was creating this, right? What really matters from a revenue based metric is what your goal is, what your objective is, what your KPI is. If my intention is to onboard as many customers as possible, right? Then I would be interested in something called the customer acquisition cost. How much money am I spending while acquiring customers? Because I'm not worried about my revenue at that stage. Remember, I'm in the startup phase. In the startup phase, maybe I worry about customer acquisition cost. I'm not worrying about revenue, cash flow, etc. As I grow, once I am slightly grown, I'm no more startup, etc., I worry about my revenue. What is my monthly recurring revenue? How much money am I making per customer? I need to know what the wallet size. You asked, right? What's the wallet size of my customer? If I am spending, do you remember the BB Daily example I took? BB Daily is spending 240 rupees today to onboard a new customer. Are you spending at least 240 rupees or more to BB Daily? Otherwise, you are a sunk cost as a customer, right? Similarly, there are some of these metrics: monthly recurring revenue, which is on the growth state of a startup; customer lifetime value. This is that very important metric because, as I said, customer lifetime value, if it is lesser than the customer acquisition cost, then whoever is designing the customer acquisition strategy should be fired. Because your customer lifetime value should be at least equal or more than the customer acquisition cost. Otherwise, you are a loss-making company. And there you go. Customer acquisition cost comes right next. For those who are unaware of these terms, simple. How much money did you spend to acquire a customer? That could be my sales budget, my marketing budget, whatever. Like you would see a booth which is being set up outside your building. Somebody saying, "Hey, why don't you try my product," etc. The salary that I have paid to that guy who's standing there, the amount of money I have spent on building that, whatever the setup so that he can talk to you, etc. All of that goes into customer acquisition cost. If I'm standing outside your building and saying, today I onboarded 20 customers for which the company had to spend 10,000 rupees, then whatever, I have spent 500 rupees per customer, right? So that's my customer acquisition cost. Moving over, there are some metrics that are customer related too. So we talked about product, we talked about revenue, and now I'm getting into customer related. It's very similar. You'll not see something different here, but I talked about net promoter score. Maybe this is the moment when I talk about net promoter score. Typically what, and this is interesting, net promoter score is important. And the reason I'll tell you why it is important. The question that net promoter score answers is how much do my customers love my product? Now, don't talk to my wife because she would hate when I say that we can find a way to quantify love. And that is what net promoter score is. It is asking customers to rate your product on a score of 0 to 10. When you would have seen that pop up, right? Rate my product on a score of 0 to 10. I will tell you what happens afterwards once you have rated a product between 0 to 10. So that now you're more mindful of what is the science behind the net promoter score, right? What they will really do is they will take all the customers who have rated the product 9 or 10. and then they will take all the number of instances where the customer has rated between 0 and 6. And then they will say promoters minus detractors, which is all the 0 to 6 divided by total number of responses, is your net promoter score. Now, net promoter score could be negative also. Your product sucks so much that there is hardly anybody who's rating a 9 to 10. And if you see, we've just discounted 7 and 8 because we feel 7 and 8 are neutrals. 9 and 10s will stay with your product. They are your fans. They are not your customers. You have to take care of them because they are the ones who will argue with somebody else saying the product does not work. They will say, no, I love the product so much. It works. Yeah, sure. There's a problem, but still I love. They are your promoter. Detractors are the ones who will leave your product at the drop of a handkerchief. Right? So then you find your NPS, and then this is like literally quantifying love, quantifying the love of your customers towards your product. Then again, go search the internet. It will say if it is less than 20, you have to do this. It could be negative. If it's negative, you are really wrong, on the wrong path. It has to be above 40, 50. They'll have some numbers around for you, right? This is quantification of love. Similarly, there is CSAT. CSAT is how customers are satisfied with your product. Similarly, there is DSAT. Now, again, as you see, I just skimmed through those CSATs, DSATs, and the NPS, etc. Right? The metric is not important. This is one thing I want you to leave with this session. Metric is not important. What is important is why are you measuring that metric? Where is it going to take you? At times, revenue is important. At times, growth is important. It's for you to choose.